Today's program, we have to finish. Okay, well, I began to present on, let's say, gender issues. So I will restart a bit from another angle, finish what I had left aside 2 weeks ago, and then we will pass to the presentation. So I will start now. I will start to read what I prepared under the title Seminar Health, and then I will go back to the previous course. So I restart from this very elementary, simple definition of the difference between a state of peace and a state of war in gender terms. So this definition could be this: in a state of peace, women and men live together, and family is the basic, let's say, unit kernel of all this, the most common expression of this shared life. In a state of war, the archaic form of the male community resurfaces. And it is interesting to see, I think, how movies reconstruct the more or less, very often rather more than less, but it's always a bit ambiguous, transition. The transition from one state to the other. Form, as I think I stressed it already, these two, let's say, forms of life, or those spheres, they are very, let's say, hermetic. They do not communicate, actually, because many factors tend to keep one sphere away from the other. So in filmic terms, it means that the scene, let's say the scene where a man, who is a soldier, of course, says bye-bye, or let's say bids of his wife farewell. In this kind of scene, gates, doors, has to be there, so that the transition becomes visible. But I would say the transition is more a gap than, properly speaking, the transition. So I would like to show you just 2 short clips which present this very, let's say, sensitive issue, passing from one word to another. So can we see this maybe now? Have you problem? The DVD or not? So this is okay. Yes. So the first clip is from, as written here, a war film which is called Away All Boats, from 56. And the second one is from a film which is more, let's say, famous, more interesting, which is called 30 Seconds Over Tokyo. And it was shot at the end of the war. There is in it, it's not what I will show, but in it you can find a very impressive film on the first bombing of Tokyo by American bombers. So, okay, let's see. In a way, all boats, there is, at this place, you will see the role or the place. Okay, can I have some light, please? Thank you. So, okay, now to finish on this, I would like to draw your attention onto a narrative obstacle Hollywood has to try to overcome here. It's always in terms of relations between sex and gender issues. So, war in the jungle, war at sea, war in the air, in this context, all this is, of course, male's business in the context of the Second World War, of course. So once the farewell ceremony has been carried out, women are out of play, they are hostile. But from the narrative angle, but as well in market terms, this is completely inconceivable. For the average American audience is used to more or less storied love stories in films which are intended for the general public. They are used to see in each of these films more or less glamorous female stars and so on. The condition for war films to exert mobilization effects on this general public, that is all kinds of civilians, including women, elderly people, and children, who all of them have to be mobilized a way or another. The condition for this is that these standards should be taken into account. These general standards should be taken into account in them. And for this reason, women who have been expelled from the field of war, they have to come back through the filmic or cinematic narrative device. And this at any cost, So what comes back is our heart-rending love stories, complicated family matters, dramatic encounters in a military hospital ward, the story about the wounded soldier and the gentle nurse, dozens of these stories in these films. Improbable, very romantic meetings between, so I will see you a clip from No Man is an Island. So the meeting between the lost soldier, lost on the island, Guam, and the rather attractive young native girl. So, okay, we will see this clip, but maybe I just finished it here. I finished this story. So this way, women make their comeback. They have to make their comeback in the space of the war film for reasons which are completely unrealistic in terms of narration of war, but which are very realistic in terms of filmmaking economy. That is, the boy meets girl golden rule cannot be so easily abolished. And as a consequence, the exception of war, as depicted in the war film, as a rule, this exception of war is normalized. The average spectator's landmarks are kept intact in the film, which deals with the exception of war. But, there is a but, the cause of women, if I may say so, the cause of women has to suffer a lot from that. In all these films, women are confined in or to roles of more or less heroic male warriors, foils. That is, housekeepers, lonely, anxious fiancés and lovers, or as well women, devoted nurses, etc. As you know, Hollywood, as a rule, and in particular at that time, in time of war, I mean, is, and in this period, 40s, is a manufacture for male supremacism. But the conditions of war notably make things become worse. And we have to add that very trivial economic matters and constraints also have to be taken into consideration at this place. Because for a very simple reason, the studios in Hollywood have, of course, dozens of actresses at any level. I mean, scale from the superstar to, okay, B or C rank or category actresses, but most of them being under contract. So they have to be paid every week. This is the way it works in Hollywood. Every week you get your fees. And whether you act or not. So for this reason, too, economic reasons, these women have to be involved in the war film plots. So even if it is in very silly, very conventional, very subaltern roles, or at very subaltern places. So, as you can check it, if you see any of these films, they have to play, but they have to play small parts. So both for ideological and for economic reasons. And as a rule, in these small parts, they appear as perfect, exemplary subalterns. That is, again, we bump into this comfort dimension. The woman as the warrior's best support and, let's say, in general terms, comfort. So let's see this clip from No Man is an Island. Okay, it's not completely, let's say, it doesn't fit completely to what I just said now, because the actress, okay, she's typical, you will see, typical useful idiot in the role she plays, but of course she's not a Hollywoodian actress, so it's only half in accordance to what I just described. But okay, you can see the way it works, it's rather exemplary. So, in short, the story, so you see this beautiful man, Jeffrey Hunter. It's a story, it's from, allegedly from a real story. American soldier on a very dangerous mission on the island Guam, which was occupied by the Japanese. All his unit is annihilated, and he's the only survivor. But he is supported by the local people. One funny thing from the film, it's interesting as an anecdote. In the film, which has been shot in the Philippines, not in Guam, for technical, economic reasons, the natives, they speak in Tagalog, of course, because they are Filipinos. But in Guam, people speak another language, which is called Chamorro. But doesn't matter, of course. Who cares about the difference between Chamorro and Tagalog? So, okay, you well, maybe they don't speak in their language in the clip. So, okay, he is supported, hidden in a cave by local people, and they very gracefully provide him with, you will see, very beautiful creation. Yes, just I wanted, so I'm going back to page 6 of the previous paper. I wanted to say something about, let's say, complications. Complications, that is, how you see male community in itself, if it's homogeneous, it's something which is relatively simple. I mean, the rules are simple, but it might become a bit more complicated as, let's say, contaminations effects appear by of this sphere. I mean, by, let's say, values and patterns from the other world, the world in peace, let's say the human world, war, being the unhuman. So, and for this, I wanted to go back to a clip from passage from yesterday's enemy we saw the week before. One of the interesting things, this film is very interesting, but one of the interesting issues is that you remember this British platoon in the jungle in Thailand, lost in the jungle. Is not, this platoon is not homogeneous. It is not what I described as mixed community. And this for the good reason that it includes two elements which are heterogeneous. One is a Roman priest called Padre. I don't know why he's called Padre, but he's a Roman priest, a British, but we'll see. And the other one is a journalist. And these people have kept values and patterns from the world in peace. So they do not accept the captain's idea that war has to be a world apart, and that anybody has to accept it. So they keep being humanists, and they do think, they are convinced that universal moral values have to be respected, implemented in time of war too. And this even in the most extreme conditions of war. And this is the reason why they argue vehemently with the captain, as the captain decides to shoot villages in order to know about the Japanese, his Japanese counterparts' plans. So they call him a fanatic, they call him a criminal. And he retorts vehemently that they are just tourists in the context of war. Seems to be right in, let's say, in the narrative course of the thing, because at the end they take weapons and they shoot back at the Japanese. But what matters for us here is that the priest and the journalist do incarnate the spirit and the values of the world in peace, of civilization, let's say. But as such, the interesting thing is that they fail in passing the test of the experience of war in these extreme conditions. So they are quite pathetic in this context. They protest, they argue, they complain, but they are pathetic. It's useless because they have no grip on the situation, no grasp on the situation. They just, the priest preaches, the journalist makes lectures, teaches moral lessons. They become both of them very indignant, but they just talk. They are out of the context. On the other side, the captain, the professional, the military man, is, of course, is some kind of a delay, he's a bastard, he's unscrupulous, but he acts, he fights, and he does it for the best of his cause. So, okay, we know this, shooting non-combatant civilians, even in time of war, of course, it's a crime. So this bloody episode of the village has, after the war, has been publicized, and for this reason, and for the captain has to appear before a military court. But this is not the important issue for the film, the legal issue, the case. What matters is that what the film insists on is this. War creates, or war exudes its own norms, which are very special, paradoxical norms, because the matrix of these norms is the precept, the axiom, the end justifies every mean. So this means that the norm is that no norm should put a limit to the use of extreme means. In other terms, the norm is that everything is permitted if it is needed. And this, of course, is the very negation of the notion of a norm, or what a norm should be. That is an instrument which is intended for restraining human violence, or a tool for the pacification of human bodies. So I would like to see you this scene, and this is, you have it already? My impression is that they play very British. It's not Hollywood, it's very British, from the British English theater. I'm not quite sure. So, okay, now let's pass to something very interesting. Okay, let's take about homosexuality. This mixed community, as a community of young men, has, of course, a libidinal, sexual dimension. And there is, or there can be, something pleasant, exciting, stimulating for men to be on their own, between themselves, and form this way some sort of an ambiguous, archaic, maybe regressive male community. Maybe you saw the famous Visconti's, Luchino Visconti's, the Italian filmmaker, the Dad. And in this film, which is about the story about the seizure of power by the Nazi in Germany in the 30s, beginning of the 30s. So there is a scene about the Nazi SA, so the special corps, which all these people in brown uniforms are all together and appear, they are depicted as some kind of a degenerate community united by homosexual rights. And it is interesting to note that this dimension of war appears to be one, let's say, one of the best kept secrets in the films we are dealing with here. And the only exception to the rule I can mention here, but maybe I forget something, is from Oshima's famous film, Merry Christmas, Mr. Lawrence. We know it in France, as fully this film. Where this issue, this question of the, let's say, fatal attraction of the Japanese commander of the prisoners, Captain Yanoi, or one of his captives, Major Colliers, is openly and I think very beautifully raised. For this reason, this film, Furyo means prisoners of war in Japanese, this film has become some kind of a reference in the realm of gay movies. But by contrast, we have to notice that Hollywood is very shy on this issue. I do not know any equivalent of, let's say, something like Brokeback Mountain by Ang Lee in the context of the war in the Pacific and in Eastern Asia. But once again, maybe I missed something. So as a result of this inhibition or maybe this taboo, we are, of course, incited, we are pushed to look for all kinds of, let's say, subliminal messages, hidden libidinal dimension in films where a Western, usually American soldier, establishes ambivalent, complex relations with the Japanese counterpart. And we saw difference of these films. And we ask ourselves, in this film where something like affective, sentimental affinities appear between enemies, maybe it could hide something. As you remember this film we saw on the island and in the Pacific, Lombard Graves, yesterday's enemy, and maybe last time we talked about the railway man relation between the Japanese torturer and his victim, who knows. Okay, so let's see now a clip from Merry Christmas, Mr. Lawrence. It's let's say the climax of the film in this dimension.
The music is great.
You like that?
The whole movie is it's full of sexual tension between these two.
What did the Japanese men ask him before they took him away? Do you have any wet soldiers in your camp?
You have specialists for something, because they are supposed to have to know secrets, military secrets. So he wants to know, and the British officer says no, I won't say anything. So that's why I say kill him. So. But okay, if you know something else, if you have ideas on this dimension from other films, just tell me, because this is the only example I found. So.
Merry Christmas, Mr. Robinson.
Yes, no, Mr. Lawrence. Mr. Lawrence. Merry Christmas, Mr. Lawrence.
The film you showed us before with the Russian director, was a bit more erotic. The Russian director?
Sokolov. Sokolov? Yes.
Yeah. There were scenes when the emperor met, who was it? The general, the American general, that were kind of...
MacArthur.
Right. When they met each other
MacArthur. Who is gay? The emperor or MacArthur? So it's new, it's very interesting. It's a scoop. What do you mean? No, I'm just kidding. What do you mean?
Well, they were lighting each other's cigar and having very pleasant, close conversation. And the pursing of the lips, like he kept getting very close to MacArthur.
So this is something new. Emperor Japan, hero talking gay. So this is new. This is okay. I don't know. Learn something from this guy. in Hollywood cinematography, the embarrassing question of the libidinal dimension of the male community at war is like hidden behind what I call a verbal screen here, which is magic fuzzy word dames. This word dames. What art is always, you constantly hear about dames, which is a funny word. So what are dames actually in this context? Dames are every kind of young, of course, woman who is not a wife, who is not a fiancée in due form, and these are, as a rule, wives, fiancés are far away from the theater of operations, and for this reason they appear on pictures or through letters, as we saw previously. Dames, on the opposite. Dames are young women who are available at the time of war and during, of course, the interims, not during the battles, between the battles, between, before, after a battle, or at the time draftees are trained, etc. For soldiers, dames belong to what psychoanalysis would call secondary benefits, side effects, positive, very positive side effects of war. And the question is, what are they? Who are they, actually, basically? They are hostesses, they are go girls, the soldiers meet in bars. They are local girls making their living out of the conditions of war in the colonial context, professional or occasional prostitutes most of the time. So the vague and ambiguous term dames is here intended to present a decent and sometimes even enchanted picture of a very trivial and more than often sordid dimension of war. That is this general rule that where an important concentration of young men under the uniform takes place, female girls have to be available in order to boost the troops' morale. And okay, this issue is raised in some films we saw, so I will not show any clip here, we already saw it previously from a film, a comedy, which is called Private Navy of Sergeant O'Farrell, or even we saw it in South Pacific. So this is a very, let's say, contentious issue. For, as you know, comfort women is a stigma of the other, that is Japanese militarism. So the euphemism dames is here, is at this place to evade this difficult, this contentious issue. Comfort women, it is, we saw it, it still is today the mark of the invaders, Japanese militarism. But dames, it's, let's say, the lights, the hazy word, which goes together with, in the context, in this configuration, with the fight of freedom and democracy. The next chapter, I mean after the end of the war, at the time of the occupation of Japan, you have some kind of very interesting following continuation of that. A new species appears, war rights, that is Japanese women living with US soldiers, occupation, members of the occupation troops, and sometimes getting married with them. And this was very problematic for the US Army. It was forbidden for years. And it's interesting to see the way Hollywood took a grip on this issue. So two films, there are two films which are exemplary, which deal openly, directly with this question. So even three, Sayonara, but mostly Japanese war bride. Yes, Sayonara. Yes, Sayonara and Japanese war bride by King Vidor. And I found a reference of a book which I have not read, but I still give you the reference: Occupying Power, Sex Workers and Servicemen in Post-War Japan. It has been published by Stanford University Press, so it should be a series. So just to finish on this, the war in the Pacific begins, as you remember, for American society after Pearl Harbor with the complete animalization, the bestialization of the Japanese people. And it ends up with the occupation of Japan with interracial, so-called interracial marriages between American soldiers and Japanese young women. And many, you find this in many comments on these films I just mentioned. These films helped a lot to relax the tensions on this question. You remember that Japanese people have been sent to camps after Pearl Harbor, so it's a very sensitive issue. So, okay, at the end of the, and the loop is good, at the end of the circle, you have interracial marriages. So it's quite interesting. It's a trick of history. The way all this ends, maybe some kind of happy comes. I imagine. So let's see, just to finish, let's see it from Sayonara, which is a good occasion to see. Well, but okay, we saw the essential part of it. But then after it's interesting because he's bullying her a bit, pressing hard for marriage. And so it's very ambiguous because, okay, he's doing his best in direction of this interracial reconciliation marriage. But on the other hand, he behaves as the master, as the man and as the master.